Chapter 14, Speaking to a Global Audience, for use with the public speaking projects, Public Speaking, the Virtual Text. Please note that not all information from Chapter 14 will be covered in this presentation, and also there may be one or two items in this presentation that might not necessarily be found in the textbook. It's important to adopt a global perspective so we can have an understanding of and sensitivity towards the needs of our diverse audience. The better we understand our audience's needs, the better we can meet those needs when we communicate with them. The author of our chapter cites 4 important imperatives from Judith Martin and Thomas Nakayama as to why we should adopt a global perspective. The first one is the economic imperative. Our economy is much more interconnected with economies from other countries around the world than at any point in time in history. Goods are being transported every day from country to country. In terms of the technological imperative, technology such as with internet technology such as social media, video conferencing, and even email technology allow us to communicate instantaneously with people from around the world. In terms of the demographic imperative, people are moving from city to city, relocating from country to country, and as they do so, it becomes important to have a good understanding of the cultures that people come from so we can better meet the needs of our diverse audience. And the peace imperative illustrates the importance of avoiding hate speech and communicating in an ethical manner to our audience. People from different cultures can have different beliefs and different values, so as a speaker it becomes very important for us to have sensitivity and respect towards people who have alternate perspectives and alternate ways of looking at things. It also becomes very important for us to watch out for the use of stereotypes and even prejudice when speaking to our audience. The term ethnocentrism basically says that your worldview or your way of looking at your way of understanding the world is superior to that of others. Oftentimes this is unconscious, so it's very important to try and have an increased awareness to make sure that ethnocentric thinking doesn't creep its way into the content of our presentations and our speeches. Different cultural factors can affect the way that individuals communicate with each other, so let's take a look at some of them. Low context communicators like to communicate very directly. They like to get to the point, don't beat around the bush, tell it to me straight. Individuals from more high context cultures, people who value high context communication, like to be more indirect, use more innuendo, and oftentimes communicate more through nonverbal communication than individuals who come from more low context cultures. Individualism is closely connected with low context communication, and collectivism is closely connected with high context communication. People from more individualistic cultures tend to communicate in a low context manner. People from more collectivistic cultures tend to communicate in a more high context manner. Some cultures place a high value on masculine traits, such as assertiveness, while other cultures may place a higher value on feminine traits, such as caring for others. In terms of time orientation, there are 2 major terms that we think of. One is called monochronic time, the other one is called polychronic time. In monochronic cultures, or cultures that value monochronic time, they value being punctual, being on time, don't be late. In polychronic cultures that value polychronic time, they're a little bit more flexible. They have more of an elastic way of looking at time. They don't necessarily see punctuality as being as important as individuals who value monochronic time. Nonverbal communication can also vary from culture to culture as well. Kinesics, which basically focuses on body language or body movements, can communication because certain gestures may have different meanings from one culture to the next. Also, some body movements in one culture might not even necessarily exist in another culture. For example, a certain gesture might not necessarily be recognizable from one culture to another. Also, an aspect of nonverbal communication that's related to voice is called paralanguage. It's not necessarily what we say, but how we say what we say. This can include our tone of voice, our volume, how fast we're speaking, the use of pauses, vocal inflection, and things of that sort. The Public Speaking Project's textbook, Public Speaking, a Virtual Text, can be found at www.publicspeakingproject.org.